Faceless woman at mall entrance. Posted by Pazri00. Okay, so I'm going for a night out to have dinner with my fiancé at a restaurant in a big mall close to home. Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. We're in the car chatting and making our way there. There's a parking structure at this mall, and to get there you have to pass by the main street entrance on a thin one-lane path. I have a habit of always being quite vigilant, looking around as noticing everything I can. I mean, those who come to Rio de Janeiro or live here know that this isn't the safest city in the world. So as I slowly drive by the main entrance's big double glass automatic doors, I look at everyone standing there. Typically, they're waiting for an Uber or taxi to pick them up. In the corner of the square space, almost touching the left wall just outside the door, I see a woman, or what looked like a female human. But what made me look twice and then a third time was that she had no face. She looked like one of those store mannequins. Now you could argue that she was a mannequin, except that lady was moving around. That blew my mind. About 5 seconds after we passed by those doors, my fiancé looks at me with shock on her face and asks if I had just seen that faceless lady. I mean, it's one thing for me to have supposedly seen it alone, and maybe I was just seeing things, as they say. But she had seen it too. We got in and parked the car, and we went outside to see this thing. But she was gone. Till this day, every time we go to that mall, we look for that faceless woman, but we've never seen her again. It wasn't creepy per se, but definitely some glitch in the matrix type stuff. I was sleeping just fine as soon as the clock hit 3 a.m. Posted by photos_and_music. Everything I mention is 100% the truth. I woke up at around 3 a.m. and couldn't fall asleep, and I felt a malicious presence in my room. I'm also an empath, so I naturally feel all the energies. I kept trying to fall asleep, but every time I closed my eyes, I kept seeing very intense graphical visuals of the people I care about brutally dying by some sort of force, and there was this very loud alarm. Also, I kept seeing a little devil child. It was speaking to me, though I can't remember what she was saying. Soon after, I shuffled a white noise playlist on Spotify to help me fall asleep, but I kept feeling this very intense, evil vibration coursing through my body. I was completely awake, but I couldn't move, and my breathing wasn't the best. It really felt like something was strangling me. I have woken up with random bloody scratches, bruises, and pain in the past. I have also played with black magic and Ouija boards. I don't anymore. Small objects have fallen off my shelf in my closet, and my curtains moved or opened. Sometimes I do see translucent or white light figures around or outside the house. Sometimes, even when I go shopping, I see these spiritual figures at times. The attic is in my room, and I've heard very clear footsteps. Most of the time, these spirits are very welcoming and feel really nice. But sometimes, it's just pure evil. If you're wondering why I'm not scared of this, it's because it happens so frequent. I've also been awake since 3 a.m. and it's now 9 a.m. There's so much more to say, but I don't want to make this longer than it already is. Challenging a Widow's Curse. Posted by KO_Oreo. When I was 13 or 14, I was staying at a hostel in Ireland. This hostel was directly next to, supposedly, one of the most haunted places in Ireland, an abandoned mansion. In fact, the hostel was built from the bricks of the mansion. There was a story that a widow cursed someone in that mansion, and when they died, they remained. After hearing this, being a young and dumb 13-year-old, I decided to taunt the ghost. Big mistake. Nothing happened after I taunted the ghost until I went to bed. That night, to the very right side of my bed, I heard light breathing. I paid it no mind though, because I've had experiences before, and breathing was not a huge alarm for me. I eventually fell asleep. And then I got a phone call on my phone at 3 or 5 a.m. It was likely family from back home in the U.S. I did not answer the call, and I tried to get back to sleep. But there was the problem. My comforter had fallen off the bed, to the right side of the bed. and the breathing was loud and raspy now. At this point, I was scared. I had never heard breathing so loudly before, and it just wouldn't stop. Needless to say, I didn't get my comforter out of fear, and thank God I didn't. In the morning, I was shocked by what I saw. To the right of my bed was the comforter laying on the ground, and it looked like a human was under it. I could make out the arms, legs, head. It was all there. To this day, I genuinely believe if I had reached for my comforter, something would have reached back. Personal experience. Posted by Phase520. When I was in my early 20s, my father was diagnosed with cancer. I do not recall which one specifically, as by the time the cancer was found, it was all over his body. He continued to live his life as best as he could, but over time his health began to decline. It took copious amounts of pain medication just for him to get through the day, and he was beginning to barely eat or drink. It was about this time that he began to wake up in the middle of the night to apparitions at the foot of his bed. He would explain later that he was being visited by my late uncles, telling him that he should come with them. I'm a firm believer in the paranormal, so when I heard that this was happening, I figured his time on Earth was coming to an end. Still, this was something I was having a hard time coping with, as I simply could not comprehend that my father was dying. At this time, his doctor was stating that the chemotherapy and medications were helping, and that there was a chance he could beat his cancer. But I believe my father knew a lot more than he let on. Although there may have been hope, he was in an extreme amount of pain, and he probably sensed his time was running short. The evening before he died, he asked for an extra dose of his pain medication, which should have tipped my family off that he was in worse shape than he let us know. All seemed well when we all went to bed that night. Unbeknownst to me, my mother moved to the living room couch in the middle of the night, which was a fairly common occurrence, as my father was a terrible snorer. Around 4 a.m. that evening, she went to check on my father, and his body felt cold. In a state of panic, she ran to wake me up, since I was the eldest and my siblings probably could not handle the situation as I could. I quickly called 911 and gave instructions to my mother that were given to me by the dispatcher on the phone. As my mother desperately proceeded to give him CPR, I just so happened to see something in the corner of my eye. I glanced in that direction to see what was there and could not believe my eyes. Standing in the far corner of the bedroom was my father. He stood there, watching us with his hands clasped behind his back, which is how he stood when he was thinking or waiting for something or someone. He was staring straight at me, and there was a transparency to him, like I could see right through him. I looked back down to his body to make sure I was actually seeing the sight before my eyes, shocked at what I had seen. I glanced back up and he was still there, smiling a mischievous smile at me, like this was a secret between us. His presence was incredibly comforting. This particular experience seemed like a confirmation that he was going to a better place, as well as proof of the existence that there is something after death. At this point, my attention was broken as the paramedics had arrived and were knocking at the front door. When I looked back, his apparition was gone. Everything afterwards was the experience of anyone who has had to deal with a death in the family. Police asking the details of what happened. My family and I comforting each other, overall just trying to cope with what had happened. Later that morning, other family members began to come by the house, giving their condolences and offering help in any way that they could. At this point, I was exhausted, so I decided it was time to try to get more sleep. As I lay in my bed trying to comfort myself, occasionally wiping away the tears from my grief, I felt my father's comforting presence once again. Although I was unable to see him this time, I did feel his hands lightly grasp mine. I feel it was his way of letting me know that he was okay, as well as a way of saying his final goodbye. I was on a walk, and I saw a tall, about 8 or 9 feet tall, black, lanky, almost stick-like creature running by really quickly. Posted by Jazzapillar. I'm unsure of what I saw. I started believing I was crazy, because I was walking my dog about at 8 p.m. before we got to the street we crossed to her favorite spot. I saw this creature running by quickly. It's like I said, it looks black, almost pitch black, but I saw some gray on it. It runs so fast, and its limbs were very long and lanky, and I've seen it about 2 times the same way. And as soon as it gets to the other side of the street, it just disappears. About 3 weeks later, my sister was visiting and came with me on a walk and saw that creature too. At first I said nothing, but when we got to my house, she described it exactly how I saw it. I'm not sure what it is. A ghost? Cryptid? Unsure. I Googled it and even looked at a book on cryptids and creatures in Arizona, but nothing. If anybody knows or has seen this thing, please help.